met her. I hired her. I hired a lot of you phenomenal people. But she was hired in 1990 as a social worker at IS and has spent the last 27 years, is that even possible, helping hundreds of children in need. Her compassion and care for our children who need help and any support is matched by none. And I know her passion and I've worked with her passion for so many years. We're so grateful. And Keith Jurecks, who has graduated from the University of Wisconsin Scout. He majored in marketing education with a minor in business administration and coaching. And he received a master's degree in education from St. Mary's University. He was hired in Orono in 1994. He teaches both marketing and consumer economics and runs an extremely successful DACA program. If you're not familiar with DACA, our program truly is that culminating experience for students where all of their academics, all of their content areas come to life and come together and blossom through the DACA program. Together, these two have mentored thousands of Orono students and have helped each one of them have better lives. It is phenomenal work that these two do for us. It's my honor to turn over the mic that I adjusted to a short mic for Keith. I know you had it just for me.
Thank you, Tara. Really kind. You ready to do this, Jurecks?
I am now.
All right. When Karen approached us to be faculty speakers, knowing our love for camping, she suggested we weave the theme of the great outdoors and nature into our message today. And we agreed that would be a perfect fit for us. And we were actually able to do it peacefully, which is really great.
My personal, and professional belief system has always revolved around the idea that each path within your lifetime leads you to the person you are today. Some paths are seemingly set in stone, and some are guided by a higher power other than ourselves. Sometimes these changes help by self-motivation, and other times the path is changed through an important relationship, or even in an instant, by a virtual stranger. I'll talk more about that in a moment. First, a bit about our life paths, which led Julie and I to be standing here today. I was born in Minnesota and later moved to Wisconsin.
I was born in Wisconsin and later moved to Minnesota.
I grew up the youngest of 5 children.
And I grew up the oldest of 3.
I grew up camping with my family.
And so did I.
I attended K through 7th grade in Columbia Heights.
I attended K through 7th grade in Hopkins.
My father retired when I was in 8th grade and we moved to Frederick, Wisconsin.
My dad opened a doctor's office in Long Lake, Minnesota when I was in 8th grade, and we moved to Mullen.
I graduated. Oh, I love these pictures. I graduated high school in 1982 and began college at the University of Wisconsin-Stout.
And I graduated the same year and began college at UW Eau Claire, 24 miles up the road.
I went to college believing I would be an industrial salesperson.
And I went to college believing I would be a journalist.
I ended up playing 4 years of football for the University of Stout and coached in my 5th year.
And I played co-ed intramural beer ball at Eau Claire. And we both graduated.
As it turns out, 2 of my closest high school friends
Became 2 of my closest college friends. And they were both in our wedding years later.
Our paths crossed many times during our college years, attending the same events at the same time, but never actually meeting.
And being an avid sports fan, I attended all 4 years of Eau Claire Stout rivalry football games, not realizing I was watching my future husband on the field. And may I add, we won all 4 years.
Again, forgotten memories. Immediately after graduation, I took a position in sales to gain practical experience before teaching.
And I worked at a dental office by day while applying for graduate schools and gaining social work experience at night.
A few years later, I almost took a teaching position in Idaho.
And I almost moved to North Carolina for graduate school.
But luckily for us,
We both eventually landed here, and our paths finally crossed in 1995 at the Orono High School coffee machine.
That's cute.
We were married in 1998, and we live in Delano with our 2 sons, of whom we are very proud. Drew is a senior at Delano, and Tad is a sophomore. Not to be forgotten is our sweet yellow lab, Scout. As many of you know, camping remains an important part of our summers. We cherish the traditions and memories that are made during these adventures. Like Karen said, this will be my 28th year at Orono, and Keith's 24th. We are both so thankful that our paths led us to the Orono schools and to our life profession of working with students and with all of you.
today we sit here ready to embark on the new school year. For some, the year begins with the humbling feeling, knowing this will be your final year of a cherished career leading to retirement. On the other end sits our new teachers and staff, the Orono schools, anxiously anticipating the year to begin with unknown hopes and dreams. Wherever you sit in your career, your path has brought you to this point today. Think back to the opportunities, choices, and decisions, and perhaps second guessing along the way. Some choices were large and significant, others seemingly small. They all put you in this seat today. It is a path you control, so we believe. I often use storytelling in my classrooms to emphasize key components, so I'll do some of that here today. As we often hear the phrase, we control our own destiny. But do we? Sure, we control the majority of our future, but the path of our future is always changing, with the yet-to-be determined outcome. I know this. I would not be here today without the aid of an endless group of people that steered me to what, where, and who I am today. This is my 7th grade report card. I'll look closely. Middle school teachers, I think you can see some challenges that would lie ahead. for the satisfaction of having this one move to 8th grade. This report does not reflect a bright and promising future. This was my path until my parents moved from Columbia Heights to the rural country setting of Wisconsin. I hate to think of my other self had we stayed in Columbia Heights. Heck, in 3rd or 4th grade, we had this elaborate activity set up by our teacher. It was like a real-life financial activity where students had jobs, bought home, land, paid bills, bought insurance, played out the real-life drama of the game. A friend and I, a friend and I broke into the classroom after school and robbed the bank. Sure, I was on a path, but a path to where?
You might have needed a social worker.
True. Little Frederick, Wisconsin was a tough transition for a city kid. However, slowly my path was starting to nudge in a different direction. I remember Mrs. Gloxine, the math teacher, commented to me early in my 8th grade year. I'm not sure how you did things in Columbia Heights, Keith, but we don't do that here. It took me a while to realize the importance of this statement and its very meaning, but it has hung with me ever since. My path from a troubled city kid to a cared-for country bumpkin had just been nudged. Oh, I still had a roadblock or two, like the day of the end of the year middle school track meet, where I was, sadly, punched by Mr. Anderson, choked by Mr. Draxler, put on lunch duty by Mr. Carley, and received a very look of disappointment from the very same Mrs. Blacksey. Remember, this was the 70s, in a very different era, and a very different time. Fortunately, that was the end of middle school and the beginning of high school. Teaching, however, was not yet in my path. High school was a series of events and learning points. I truly had wonderful teachers who took a deep interest in the kids entering their classrooms. As I think back to these formative 4 years, my path was an evolution of being nudged on a daily basis. The teachers at Frederick High School took me on a path that became a journey for the both of us. They cared, and I slowly moved away from the path of a troubled youth and a questionable future. They cared, so I cared. My path had changed. I owe a debt of gratitude to the teachers of Frederick High School. I have known for many years they were my life's biggest influencers. Julie and I married 16 years later after our high school graduation. 6 of my high school teachers were in attendance that day. They joined us at the Basilica to celebrate a milestone that had not been achieved without them. I would like you to take a moment to think of a situation where your path was nudged by a former teacher, member of your school or community. Don't share, just reflect. Okay, let me ask this question about this memory. Was it a caring comment or conversation made by a teacher, counselor, social worker, coach, custodian, principal, support staff, or a particular class that changed your thinking? Or perhaps an inspirational speech given by a coach, a mentor, or a club leader? Staying with this thought for a moment, ask yourself this question. What would have been your path without this person in this situation? One of my core values and statements I often reference to kids is that our paths have led us to where we are today. A typical first stage statement would include, welcome to the marketing room. I'm excited to have you as a student for the year. You may have elected to pursue marketing and DECA of your own accord. Maybe your sibling or friend encouraged you to. Maybe a parent directed you here. Maybe your first choice classes were full and you just landed here. Regardless, you and I are now on a path together. Where that path leads and what we take from it is yet to be determined. Every kid walking into your classroom is forever changed. Their path will be altered in some form or some way by you. It's crazy to think of the power of this. These kids sit in our rooms for hours and hours each year. In elementary, it's nearly every day, all day. In middle school and high school, it's 1 or 2 hour blocks of time for up to 180 days. They will walk out at the end of the year a different person. How different is up to you. When I talk about nudging a kid's path, the teacher doesn't necessarily set out to change that path today. More often than not, it can happen in the most fleeting of moments. Mr. Wexter, my high school guidance counselor, stopped me in the hall one day in my junior year and randomly asked me if I thought about selling as a future. I said I really hadn't thought about it and asked him why he said this to me. His response was, since you're a taller kid and you like to be around people, you'll get the customer's attention and respect sooner. I didn't know what to say, so really, I didn't say anything. Later, it got me thinking about his interaction, got me thinking on a path to pursue sales, which became my first choice major in college. And then this ultimately led me to this little known major, marketing and education, which led me to be a teacher, which led me to one. Also, little did Mr. Wickstrom know that I was a somewhat uncomfortable person being the tallest kid in the building, whose head was always above everybody else's. I was learning that there were advantages to being tall. Good thing, because I met a gal at my coffee machine years later. Miss Owen, she had preference for tall guys. Mr. Wickstrom, he didn't set out to change the path of the kid that day. He took an interest, he took a moment, and he shared what he was thinking. I doubt Mr. Wickstrom remembered the conversation a few years later, but the gangly kid did, still does today. It's moments like this that we have the power to forever impact a kid and change their path. It's scary to think of all the power that you have by just taking a moment. You know, why go to a movie to see a superhero when they're scattered throughout halls here at home? Oftentimes, kids' paths would alter slowly over time with just walking into your class. How many kids go into a career because Mr. Lundquist is a student who appreciates literature? Our science department has kids pursuing degrees in fields some of us are challenged to pronounce. And how about Doug Erickson with everything he does every day in the classroom, in our school, in our community? And Ms. Swenson for every student, parent, and teacher involved in our unified program. Not to mention the teachers and parents who support our students with special needs and help them explore their new paths every day. Each fall, I send kids over to the other buildings to deliver boxes of homecoming t-shirts, 1,300 of them. The delivery starts out as a task, but every time they return, the students discuss and reflect on the teachers they had in the past. Their warmth and admiration is genuine. It is evident that their paths changed as students of yours. Oftentimes, opportunities to make a difference just present itself. I remember a few years ago, a freshman gal was sitting on a bench by the library, sobbing. I had a choice to either continue walking by or to do something. I chose to sit. Why? Maybe Mr. Wickstrom was in the back of my mind. I introduced myself saying, I know we don't know each other, but I see that you're in pain. Something is positive. I made a couple of comments that this pain will pass, and in time it will not be difficult. I didn't want her to explain. I just wanted her to know that eventually everything will be okay. The total time of our conversation was 60 to 90 seconds. 2 years later, the student enrolled in my class. It wasn't until the end of the year the student identified herself and talked about that. Later, her dad pulled me aside and gave me his thanks as well. We can impact a kid's path at any given day, often without knowing. I realized this summer that I never thanked Mr. Wickstrom for all he did. It's not just the traditional staff member who has the opportunity to nudge the path of students. Parents, secretaries, cooks, and custodians, bus drivers, volunteers, and other support staff can find themselves in the same position. Think back to your career. I bet you can think of a support staff member who was impactful. I think of Kitty, lunch lady in Frederick, who gave me 13 scoops of mashed potatoes. Because I was a growing boy. Our own retired custodian, Ed Glover, was elected by the senior class of 2015 to stand as a faculty representative at their graduation. You got to do a lot of relationship building to be selected as one of their most impactful staff members. So, I truly believe every person has an niche in life where they can attain success, where they wake up each day excited for the challenges that lie ahead. One sometimes overlooked component of our job as educators is to help move that student closer to their niche, their calling in life, their thing they're really good at. We all know people who love their job and are really gifted at what they do. They have found where they belong. We also know a number of people who have missed their calling see their jobs as a means to the weekend, enjoying only 2 of the 7 days. My older brother comes to mind when I think of this. He's retired now, but the bulk of his career, he truly lived for the weekend, dreading the Monday to Friday routine. He never really had people nudge his path along the way. Without realizing it, we are given the power to alter the path of students every day. They may not be your students. It could be the kid in the hall you say hi to. It might be the kid you compliment for something they are wearing. It might be the kid you praise because he or she stood up for a friend. It might be the kid who sits in the back of your class and never says a word. It might be the kid who sits alone that much. It could even be the kid you discipline for one reason or another. Or it might be the parent who's struggling to find answers for their kid. The power you possess is uncomfortably powerful. The path we are on is never set in stone. The options are infinite. As I said earlier, we believe we can completely control our own paths in life. But I beg to differ. Paths change. They are changed by people in our lives, motivation, hard work, failure, opportunity, and by recognizing each person's uniqueness.
Now that we've talked about paths and the very real influence any of us can have on a student, I'd like to talk more about students as individual people, unique human beings. As a school social worker, recognizing and embracing these differences has been a guiding principle for me. It's what I believe in. Each of you holds a pine cone in your hand. These pine cones were collected this summer, personally and specifically. How did you pick your pine cone today? Some of you may have just reached in and grabbed randomly. I saw that many of you looked really carefully, however, picking just the right looking pine cone, well-rounded, without damage, symmetrical, seemingly flawless. It's human nature to do so. We tend to gravitate toward what is most pleasing and what looks and feels complete. Turn to your neighbor for a moment. Take 20 seconds. Look at their pine cone and describe what you see. You guys are impressive. Okay, what did you see? What did you notice? Were comparisons made? Definitely there was laughter. Was it clear that one pine cone was better than the other? More beautiful, more appealing to the eye, more healthy looking? Pine cones grow, develop, and are shaped by many factors, most of them out of their immediate control. Was the tree of origin healthy, with deep roots and fertile soil? Did the pine cone come from a tree that was raised in good climate? Did it receive enough water to thrive, abundant sunlight, room to grow? Was it exposed to difficult times, storms, cold, disease, wind, even floods? Perhaps that tree of origin and its pine cones started out thriving with every factor in its favor, only for an unexpected forest fire to come through, potentially damaging its future and changing it forever. Perhaps a pine cone looks just right on the outside. Inside, as expected, there is an abundance of healthy seeds just waiting to create the next generation of trees. Sometimes, however, a seemingly perfect pine cone can have deep hidden issues that really cannot be seen disease, lack of development in its early formation. What is viewed on the outside does not always tell us the full story. Similarly, many of you have pine cones that look healthy and well-formed on one side, but turn it over, and maybe the story is very different. Keith mentioned the quiet student in the back of the classroom, the one who never participates or raises their hand. That was me at one point. I know, really, really hard to believe. As a 13-year-old pine cone, I looked fine on the outside. I had a loving family, a nice home, and a horse to ride. My dad was a doctor, and my mom taught jazzercise and coached tennis. I handed in all my work on time. I pulled A's and B's, and I never once visited the principal's office. On the outside, it all looked great. However, I had left my friends and all of my self-confidence back in Hopkins. I didn't fit in at Mound. I didn't feel accepted, and I completely lost myself for a while. I was teased on the bus every single day by Jim Gunyon because I had bright orange hair. New friends were hard to come by. Everybody had known each other since birth, and I felt invisible. In sharp contrast to Keith's high school experience, mine was very different. I performed academically, but on some level I was checked out. I couldn't tell you what classes I took or my teachers' names during those years, except for one, Mr. Hanley. Mr. Hanley was my high school Phi Ed teacher, and he was also our head football coach. Aside from being a fast runner, I was ridiculous in Phi Ed. I was clumsy, awkward, self-conscious, and often the last to be picked for teams. I had virtually no depth perception, couldn't hit the ball, and I felt embarrassed most of the time. Phi Ed, however, was the one class I liked going to, all because of one person, Mr. Hanley. You see, my locker was right near his office, and from the first day of freshman year, he gave me a smile and a greeting each and every day. He also gave me the confidence to try new things and to make mistakes. He gave me the nickname Oli. I would come off the bus each day, knowing that Mr. Hanley would be there with a smile and a, "Hey, how's Oli doing today?" It mattered. It mattered so much. At our 25-year high school reunion, we golfed at Lakeview. Well, actually, I drove the beverage cart because I still can't hit the ball.
And we'll show a video.
Our boys insisted that we add that to the presentation. Oh my gosh. Okay. So as we were waiting to tee off at our reunion, I heard a jolly, "Hey there, Oli." I turned, and there was Mr. Hanley, long since retired and working part-time at the golf course. I had not seen him in 25 years. And there he was, making me feel as special as he always had. Mr. Hanley knew that my inner pine cone was struggling. It was a really important time of my life. He made a huge difference, and I was lucky to be able to share that with him that day at the golf course. I think pine cones are like students. They come in different shapes, colors, and sizes. All are beautiful in their own way. Some children come from healthy climates, while others sometimes struggle every day to make it through, and most need help to do so. As Keith said, imagine and just know that you are helping more than you ever could imagine. You can truly change a path. Some students are well-rounded inside and out. Their family tree was healthy, well-developed, and had the luxury of a great environment and series of circumstances. Fires and storms were not part of their history. For some, life feels difficult given the deck of cards dealt to them or crisis situations beyond their control. And for some, a seemingly small change, like a move or trouble making new friends, can feel like the weight of the world. Some children are just born different, unique, and infinitely special. They do not look or act or learn like most. They are beautiful and valued just the same. Each child can learn and does learn here. As we were preparing to speak today, thinking of paths, pine cones, and the power that we have to impact lives, I couldn't help but reflect back on a teacher who embodied all of those beliefs, Ron Nelson. We sadly lost Ron this March, but he stood on this very stage in 2004, dancing the tootie top and showing us his spirit and true love for education. He and I spent hours collaborating, sometimes about our favorite camping spots, but also about kids. Ron was always looking for a new way to help and support each individual child, each special pine cone. Like most of us, he had a wide variety of students over the years, some with extreme needs and challenging behaviors, and some entering school quiet and withdrawn. He left no stone unturned in trying to connect with each and every child in his room. He sang to them, he taught them, he built relationships with them, he helped students see themselves in a new way and begin to explore new paths as learners and as people, as early as kindergarten. I learned so much from Mr. Nelson, and I still strive to have his grace, patience, and to genuinely value each person. Relationships, character, value for all individual learners. It is what I love the most about Orono schools. The fact that all children are valued and given great opportunity. Children with disabilities, students who are highly capable, immigrant students and students of color, students from a wide variety